if they have the copyright registration, they can seek statutory damages. And under the law, you can get up to $120,000 per infringement. That's a lot of money. 90% of artists don't know this is sampling. And I think the way that I like to do this is to break it down into categories of stuff that you just like either do right now or your collaborators do. And then so we can kind of have like a check mark of, is this sampling or is it not sampling? Just by general definition, when we say sampling, we're talking about someone taking a piece from someone else's song, regardless of like the length or what it is, if it's just a drum thing, if it's a vocal thing, if it's from someone else's recorded song, that's sampling. Now let's talk about it, because you're right, so how does that affect me, right? Why do I care? I'm gonna tell you why you need to care. So let's start with first cover songs. So meaning when you have someone else's song, but you decide to make your own version of it. So we had defined sampling, taking something from the actual recorded version, versus when you do a cover, that means you reimagine it, but you keep the original composition how it is. It's the same lyrics, it's the same chords, it's generally the same melodies, right? Not generally, it is the same melodies, and then you just do a whole new version. I love doing this. I do this with dark pop music, and so I'll take someone else's songs. I usually will transpose them into minor keys, so I make them kind of dark feeling, and then, build productions around them. So that's a cover song. And pursuant to the Copyright Act of the United States, all right, so it's section, if you want to look it up yourself, it's section 115, 17 USC 115. It says that you can get mechanical licenses. And in fact, as of January of 2021, the Mechanical Licensing Collective went into play and basically has an agreement with the Spotifys of the world, the Amazons of the world, all the DSPs, so digital service providers. So what does this mean for you? If you want to do a cover song, pursuant to the Copyright Act as it is right now, the DSPs have to get a license in place to make sure that when you do your cover song and you put it on Spotify, that a portion of that is paid to what's called the Mechanical Licensing Collective, and you don't have to do anything. That's great news. So that just means that there's this mechanical license thing in place. You get to do cover songs. You get to have your own versions. Great. And there's nothing that you need to pay or do. We do that just to set it off to the side because we're talking about sampling. Cover songs are not sampling. So let's talk about remixes. You DJs out there, you music producers out there, you TikTokers out there, and some of you just make a huge, career for yourself because you are just doing these remixes and they're amazing and they go viral, okay? So if you are remixing tracks, often you're taking something from someone else's song. So you might take the top line, so meaning the vocals, and then you do like a whole new instrumental, or you chop it up and you reorganize it, or you do tons of stutters and just all kinds of fun things. And so if you are remixing someone else's song, that is sampling. You took a piece, if not the whole thing, and made it into a new thing. So now it's a remix, and you are required to get a license directly from the person or company that owns that original song. A Music Attorney is your #1 legal resource for artists, producers, and record labels. Get contract templates, one-on-one legal advice, free master classes, and everything you need for your music business. Go to topmusicattorney.com. Let's talk about mashups. We'll take it to the next level. We'll have like seamless kind of, going in from one song to another. We might even take one vocal. This is so popular. I know you guys have seen it a lot on social media. You take one vocal from one song, the instrumental from one other song, and you combine it together. And, the stuff goes insanely viral. It's so good for marketing. But back to, is this sampling? Well, yes, it is. Because you took not only from one song, you took from two songs and you put them together as a mashup. You are required to get a license directly from the owners of those songs or companies, if there's record labels that own them, and you can't just do that. And I'm going to tell you why, or what happens and what you have exposure to, but keep on watching. Interpolations. That's a fancy word for taking inspiration from someone else's existing melodies and chord progressions and making it your own. Now you go, KRYSTLE, you just talked about, well, I took from someone else's song and I used their words and their melodies and I made it my own. You said that was a cover. The common example that comes up, and sometimes, people call my law office and we'll do a consultation. They'll be like, all right, so I have this song and I am just changing the chorus. And in the chorus, it normally goes da 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 da. I'm changing it and making it totally my own lyrics, my own melodies, but everything else is the same. So it's a cover, right? I go, nope, it's no longer a cover, because remember what I had said. In order for it to be a cover, you had to keep the song how it originally was written. The same melodies, the same progression. It went from the verse to the pre-chorus to the chorus, like all of that. As soon as you now change it in some kind of substantial way, it's gone. And the example that comes to mind that we covered on the channel is KRYSTLE's Milkshake, right? A milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. Her song was interpolated by Beyonce, and Beyonce put it on her album. And so that means in Beyonce's version, she's not saying my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard, but she took similar melodies, similar rhythms, and she specifically was like, hey, letting you guys know I'm doing something specifically with the inspiration from your song. So I'm going to pay you some money. I'm going to do a license. All right. So we had remixes, mashups, interpolations, all of these require a license. What does not require a license? A cover song. So now, you guys will find this helpful. Let's go through the common myths and we'll debunk them and also clarify really fast. Myth number one, sampling is exclusive to hip hop and like EDM music, right? No, it's not. Sampling is versatile. Regardless of what genre that you're in, if you are taking a piece of someone else's song and putting it into yours, you have sampled. New myth, small samples, just a little bit of it, doesn't require any kind of legal clearance. So you go, KRYSTLE, you say it's sampling, but it's like a drum loop that was 2 seconds. How would they ever know? Well, setting aside that, it's up to you if you want to potentially expose yourself. We'll talk about what that exposure looks like. It doesn't matter under the law how much you use or how little you use, okay? So this is a really big piece of it. If it's from someone else's song, it's a sample. Myth, covering a song isn't sampling. Well, we just talked about that. If it in fact is a cover, it's not sampling. It is permissible under the law. The higher ups of the world decided that they wanted you to do cover songs, so it's okay. Myth, sampling is always expensive and complicated. So meaning if you're really going to go through the process, and PS, like Kanye West, he does this all the time, including on this last album, where he just takes people's stuff. It doesn't matter how big he is, the potential exposure, like some people literally just do it and they'll figure out it later, whether they get sued, whether they have to settle. I'm not saying obviously to do that. So it can be extremely expensive, including if you go the proper direction. For one of my albums, there was a sample that I had in one of my songs and I couldn't get it cleared. And sometimes it's just because the person won't respond. You can't get in touch with the label or the publisher or whoever it is, whatever the reason was. Couldn't get it cleared. And so I had to take it out of my song. Did I die over that? No. Did it suck? Yeah, but it can be expensive and it can be complicated. It does take time. But also think about it from the reverse. If I come along and, I find your song and I decide to use it in my song and my song happens to blow up and I make a whole lot of money, wouldn't you be pissed about that? So wouldn't you want me to come and get a license from you? You know what I mean? Myth. Interpolating a melody avoids copyright issues. So it's not, my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. It goes, my earwax brings all the people to the ear doctor. I don't know. It's a commercial for an ear doctor. Well, that's now an interpolation because I took their melody and I just changed the words. So I do have to get a license for that. And it doesn't avoid the issue because now I just made it my own, okay? Because it's not a cover song. Myth. Sampling is limited to recorded music. To clarify on this, I don't know if any of you listen to meditation music, nature, film stuff. I used to audiobooks, everyday life. All that stuff is absolutely copyrightable. And I do it all the time, right? I have clients who file for their podcast for copyright protection. They file for their online course. Sampling is anything that is created and owned by someone else. If you take a piece of someone's video, if you take a piece of whatever, everything I'm talking about still applies. And again, we're going to the why you should really care about this. Myth. Sampling requires permission for every use. You have to get a license for every use, except in the instance of fair use. So this channel is a great example. If you go and you see, some of my videos that have gone up are me reacting to other people's music videos. That means I'm using their content in my video. Isn't that copyright infringement? Pursuant to fair use and the list of exceptions, which include uses over education. I'm using it to teach something. That's okay. So not every single use does require a license in those kinds of instances if there's fair use. Myth. Changing a sample makes it unrecognizable. So let me give you a literal fight that we had with Universal. So the issue was the Universal artist had taken our client's song and pitched it. Okay, so just pitched the whole instrumental. I think it was pitched up like a fifth. And so just meaning it had, a higher sound to it, a higher tone all throughout, but it was the exact same instrumental. Okay, so what do you guys think? Is that sampling? The answer is yes. I know everyone got it right. So in any case, that's a problem. And so, we had to address that. So changing some kind of thing about it and then putting it into your music, you're not going to kind of get away with it by doing that. Need contracts for your music business? Go to topmusicattorney.com to get downloadable templates such as NDAs, record label agreements, management agreements, featured artist agreements, and so much more. Go to topmusicattorney.com. Last one, myth. Sampling is risk-free for unsigned artists. It doesn't matter. And I just want to make this point because some people are like, well, what about if I give them credit? Well, what about, if I don't make money? Well, what about if I'm not a signed artist? Well, what about it? It's copyright infringement. And I compare copyright infringement to like speeding. You know how it is. If you just do it and you get caught, you're getting a ticket. So in the same kind of way with copyright infringement, here's what can potentially happen, and this is why we care. So under copyright law, there are what are called statutory damages. So in my, KRYSTLE example, so I've decided I'm going to do an interpolation of KRYSTLE's Milkshake song. If I do that and I put now different words, a little variation in the melody, and I don't pay for the license and I don't get permission to use it, and I get caught, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're also an entertainment attorney, we're going after you. Then what they can do is if they have the copyright registration, they can seek statutory damages. And under the law, you can get up to $120,000 per infringement. That's a lot of money, and it's per infringement. So that's why we see these lawsuits for copyright infringement in like the millions of dollars. And in fact, I have a copyright infringement case where we are the plaintiff, we are the ones suing in the millions of dollars. So it's a big deal. And that's why there's so many artists especially in different genres, but there's so many artists who do this. We go back to you are doing mashups and mixtapes and remixes and all this stuff because it helps online. It's really easy to sell you as a producer, as a singer, as a guitar player, if you're just sampling and you're taking other people's stuff and then you're playing your own thing over it. And what you don't realize is just the amount of exposure that you are giving yourself. And so nothing might ever happen. And this is what I say to my clients. I go, I understand what you're doing. I understand you have this like experiential wisdom. Nothing bad has ever happened to you, but just understand that as you get bigger and bigger, more eyes are on you and more people will know what you're doing. And you have these ambulance chaser attorneys and people who will go and they want to make an example out of you and they know about those statutory damages. So for all those reasons, that's why I wanted to take you guys through the why 90% of you, don't know that this stuff is actually sampling and all the little nuances in between. So if you found this helpful, please give us a like, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.